And more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. At least 2 people have been killed in the latest NATO strikes on the Tripoli compound of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. It's the first known deaths at the compound since the attack that killed Gaddafi's youngest son and 3 grandchildren late last month. The bombing came hours after the Libyan government released new footage of Gaddafi after a 2-week lull. There are conflicting accounts, meanwhile, of clashes in the western city of Misrata. Rebel groups say they've captured the airport there, but the Gaddafi regime has rejected their claims. At least 19 people have reportedly been killed in the Syrian government's latest assault on widening protests. Using weapons and tanks, Syrian forces fired on residential areas and several flashpoints of protest to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. A human rights group says 13 people were killed in the southern village of Al-Hara, while 6 people were killed in the city of Homs. Earlier today, Syrian forces reportedly broke up a massive student protest in Aleppo, Syria's second-largest city. Hundreds have been killed and thousands arrested in the Assad regime's crackdown. In other Syrian news, the news network Al Jazeera says it's received word that the missing reporter, Dorothy Parvaz, has been deported from Syria to Iran. Parvaz was detained late last month, shortly after arriving in Damascus to cover the unrest. Syria says Parvaz is now being held by the Iranian government in Tehran, but no one has heard from her directly. State forces in Yemen opened fire on protesters in 3 cities Wednesday, killing at least 9 people and injuring scores of others. A doctor in the capital city of Sana'a reported 6 people were killed, roughly 100 were wounded, when shooters opened fire on a crowd numbering in the tens of thousands marching to the cabinet building. Speaking from a hospital ward filled with wounded protesters, one witness described the assault.
So many people were hit by bullets, so many people are killed everywhere, so many people are killed. This regime doesn't know mercy. I call on a revolution that destroys this regime. I call on an awakening of people to destroy this regime and this killer, Saleh, who killed our martyrs.
The violence comes as protests against embattled President Ali Abdullah Saleh have entered their 4th month. In Bahrain, allegations have emerged of government forces attacking young schoolgirls in the ongoing crackdown against opposition protests. Speaking to Al Jazeera, Bahraini girls describe raids on their school and threats of rape directed at girls as young as 12 years old. A 16-year-old student said she and 3 classmates were taken from school and severely beaten.
He hit and banged me against the wall to make me scream. Since we did not scream, we were beaten more and more, stronger and stronger. The beating was severe, but being afraid of what was coming next meant we were senseless to the pain. He pulled a hose out and started beating us. He hit me over the head. I started bleeding and fell down. He told the guards to keep me in the restroom.
Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki has left open the possibility of an extended U.S. occupation beyond the withdrawal deadline for later this year. On Wednesday, Maliki said he will meet with Iraqi leaders to see if there's support for extending the occupation. The Pentagon's reportedly given Maliki a deadline of several weeks to decide whether to request a prolonged U.S. stay. There are currently some 46,000 U.S. troops in Iraq on nearly 70 bases, in addition to tens of thousands of private contractors. Senate Democrats have reintroduced the DREAM Act for the first time since Republicans blocked its passage late last year. Under the measure, immigrant youth would obtain permanent residency with a chance for citizenship, provided they attend college for at least 2 years or enlist in the military. We'll have more on this story after headlines. In other news from Washington, the Republican-controlled House continues to advance measures that would speed the resumption of offshore drilling. On Wednesday, the House approved a bill that would force the Interior Department to act within 60 days on all bids for drilling permits. Another Republican bill to resume drilling along the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic coast is expected to come to a vote today. Congressional Democrats, meanwhile, are pushing bills that would repeal at least $21 billion in tax breaks for the 5 largest oil firms. Executives from those companies, ExxonMobil, Shell, BP, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips, are scheduled to testify before the Senate Finance Committee today. The Iranian government has delayed the trial of 3 American hikers who were arrested June 2009 near the Iran-Iraq border. The trial of Shane Bauer, Josh Fatal, and Sarah Shord was due to begin Wednesday, but the Iranian government unexpectedly postponed the case. The hikers' lawyer, Masoud Shafiei, said he had received no explanation on the delay.
The head of the judiciary is responsible for and should provide a logical reason as to why my clients have not been sent from prison to the courtroom, the date of which had been confirmed over 5 months ago. Is the prison at my disposal so that I can bring my clients from prison? Logically, the judiciary should oversee this.
Bauer and Fatal are imprisoned in Iran, while Sarah Shord is back in the United States following her release last year. She's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and has scrapped plans to return to Iran for the trial. You can go to our website at democracynow.org to see our full interview with her. And you can also go to our website to see Shane Bauer's reports for us from Iraq. Shane Bauer is a freelance reporter who reported for Democracy Now! Uganda's parliament has delayed consideration of a bill that would force gay men and lesbians to serve life in prison. Debate on the bill has been moved to Friday after a parliamentary walkout over an unrelated matter. Originally put forward in 2009, the legislation once called for the execution of homosexuals. In addition to targeting gays and lesbians directly, the bill also mandates a 7-year prison sentence for anyone who, quote, aids, abets, counsels, or procures another to engage in acts of homosexuality. A new study estimates over 2 million women have been raped in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a figure that translates to over 1,100 women every day, or nearly 1 woman every minute. The findings are based on extrapolations from a survey of 3,400 women conducted in 2007. The study authors say the figure is likely a conservative estimate, but the United Nations says it could be misleading because the sample group is too small. Federal Communications Commission commissioner is facing scrutiny for resigning her post to become a top lobbyist for the media giant Comcast NBC. The commissioner, Meredith Atwell Baker, joins Comcast NBC just 4 months after voting to approve the company's controversial merger. In a statement, Craig Aaron of the media reform group Free Press said, quote, "This is perhaps the most blatant example of a so-called public servant cashing in at a company she's supposed to be regulating. The continuously revolving door at the FCC continues to erode any prospects for good public policy," he said. A billionaire hedge fund manager has been convicted on 14 counts of fraud and conspiracy in the largest insider trading case to come out of the financial crisis. Using secretly recorded conversations and the testimony of co-conspirators, prosecutors argued Raj Rajaratnam of Galleon Management reaped profits by illegally tipping off associates. Rajaratnam could face up to 25 years in prison. Defense attorney John Dowd said he will appeal.
Good afternoon. We're going to take an appeal from this conviction. We started out with 37 stocks. We're down to 14. So the score is, 23-14 in favor of the defense. We'll see you in the Second Circuit. Thank you.
Former Republican House Speaker Newt Gingrich has announced his bid for the Republican presidential nomination. In a videotaped message, Gingrich touted his work under the Reagan administration and his later stint as the top Republican in the House during the Clinton administration.
I worked with President Ronald Reagan in a very difficult period. We got jobs created again, Americans proud of America, and the Soviet Union disappeared. As Speaker of the House, I worked to reform welfare, to balance the budget, to control spending, to cut taxes, to create economic growth. We've done it before. We can do it again.
In New Hampshire, Democratic Governor John Lynch has vetoed a measure targeting the collective bargaining of state unions. The Republican-backed bill would have stopped unions from requiring non-members to pay a share of bargaining and administrative costs. And thousands of people are expected to descend on Wall Street today for a protest against austerity measures and financial industry wrongdoing. Organizers of the May 12th coalition say they'll call on New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg to close tax loopholes and regulate financial practices instead of targeting the public sector with layoffs and budget cuts. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.